did or did
I did.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Good. Clean page. Okay. All right. Good evening. Today is Tuesday, April 19th, 2022. We are convened at the Provo City School District Board of Education. We're meeting at 280 West, 940 North in Provo, Utah. And the time is 5 p.m. and we will begin with a roll call. I'm Melanie Hall, Board President.
Rebecca Nielsen, Board Vice President. Jennifer Partridge, Board Member.
Gina Hales, Board Member.
McKay Jensen, Board Member.
Nate Bryson, Board Member.
Terry McCabe, Board Member.
Derek Anderson, Business Administrator.
Keith Patel, Superintendent.
Is there a motion to convene?
I move that we convene study session.
All right, we are now in study session, and I'm going to turn the time over to Mark Wheeler, our Director of Facilities.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. As always, if you have any questions, please stop me. Even apart from these updates, stop me if you got any questions about any projects. Bonnie, can you go to that first slide? Some of these photos are just the most recent photos. These initial ones of Timpview High School. I wanted to show you this angle just to share a couple of things, right? So this is looking at the northeast corner, looking back to the southwest. So you see our new academic wing here on the north side, our new electrical compound here by the industrial arts wing. And you'll have to expand this on your files, but you can see the scaffolding set up here along what used to be the entrance to our auditorium, where they're putting a new masonry veneer there, which will be part of the new transition points from our new sections to the old existing sections that we aren't touching. This section right here, which you'll see a better view in a minute, is this area between the weight room and the Thunderdome, where there'll be new locker rooms, and on the second level, new classrooms for business, marketing, robotics, and sewing. That we're trying to get open by about mid-September-ish this fall, just that one section.
Yeah.
So we're hoping if we can do that, it'll kind of eliminate some of the mess here at a critical point of the campus. And then you can see all the staging. This is getting worse by the day, our lack of space for materials, not only on this east side, but also on the south side and all around the academic wing. We're doing everything we can to find every possible corner to store things. Can you go to the next one, Bonnie?
So, Mark, real quick.
Yes.
In the summer that will get better, though, or no? Like when the students are around?
Better the staging?
Yeah.
No, it'll continue to be really bad for about the next year and a half.
Okay.
The lack of space.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're grateful we actually have stuff to store, though, right?
Yeah,
Seeing as it's
correct.
already in place.
Yeah, so that's the positive side. Yeah, it's not on a barge somewhere in Long Beach Harbor.
Wait, so when's that? I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention enough.
No problem.
That other building, when is that supposed to be finished?
Can you go back, Bonnie?
You can see a little piece of it.
Right here?
Yeah.
That one we're trying to get done by about mid-September, so that we can, at least they can use some of those classes this next school year, and the new locker rooms that'll be on the main floor.
Will that be open between the Thunderdome and stuff so we can use that at that point?
Correct, yep, it'll clean up this whole corner here that's been such a mess. So that we're trying.
This was taken today and there's no roof on it, is what you're saying?
This picture was just, I've got another photo in a second that will show the metal decking going on.
Okay.
This was, I think, about a week and a half ago.
Okay.
And one of the next photos, it'll show some progress on that isolated section. Can you go to the next one, Bonnie? That's just a close-up of the academic wing. You can see more and more walls going up and more things starting to happen on the interior of that three-story portion. And the next one, Bonnie? Okay, so this is the section I was talking about, right? So here's the weight room, here's the new south gym, there's the Thunderdome in that corner. This is that new building. And you can see now, as of this week, the metal decking going in, all the steel trusses are in, so the metal decking goes on top of the trusses, and then the roofing system will start to go on top of that. So they're getting interior framing set up and ready to go on the first and second floor underneath there. So they're moving as fast as they can on that section.
So when should the roof be done then?
Sorry, I don't have that with me. I can't remember the timeline on the roof for that section. I'll get that. I'll send you a note. I just can't remember. Okay, you go to the next one, Bonnie. As far as Wasatch goes, This is our final accepted building placement concept for the Locust Lane site. It's been reviewed with a recent committee and with others, and just to have your bearings here where we're at. Here's Locust Lane, right? Here's Apple. There's 820 North, and then Oakmont on the east side. We'll have a couple of entrances. We'll take advantage of the full length of Locust Lane. This north parking lot, there'll be a lane for bus drop-off, which right now we still only have 2 buses. This will also be a drop-off for kindergarten and Giant Steps. And then this will be a drop-off as well for students during the beginning of the day and pick up. And this will be the main entrance here. Playfields here in the northeast corner, on the east side playgrounds, and then this is the building placement right here. A lot of coordination taking place with that project between the city and all the engineers and everybody involved.
So Mark, this is a 3-story building,
Correct. Yeah.
and so the second story, is it accessible from the outside?
Yes, thank you, Keith. That's a good question. So it's 3 stories, but you've got access to the main level here at the main entrance, and then this kindergarten and Giant Steps entrance here is ground level because of the grades of the slope. And so you'll have a main entrance here, but the main entrance here.
Now, when you say ground level, you mean the second floor is ground level at that
At
end?
that
At the
level.
north side, correct.
So then are the
Yep.
fields a little bit higher as well?
Yeah, yep. So when you see these dark black lines right here, those are retaining walls. So every time you see one of these lines, it's stepping up, right? So it's stepping up here, it's stepping up from here up to the parking level, and there are a lot of steps with this, yes.
I know there's professionals working on this, so I'm just gonna assume this is the case, but will you confirm that if there's gonna be a big rainstorm or something, we're not gonna get flooded where that school is down and the fields are
Yeah.
up? How's that gonna work?
Yep. There's an extensive storm drainage system that'll be designed as part of it, and it'll be tied into city systems. And the city, about a year and a half ago, also improved their storm drain line along Oakmont, coming around that corner on 820 North. And I think it was about 18 months ago they improved that. So yeah.
Mark, all the pipes and things that are up there on the ground right now, is there a timeline to get them off of there?
Yes, I just don't know. They know, when I say they, it belongs to the BYU Engineering Department.
Right.
And so they know they need to move it. They just haven't confirmed which day or week they're moving it yet, but they know our deadline.
And I was up there this afternoon, there's quite a hole being dug for the removal, so.
Yeah, and so what you're seeing there on this south side, it's right now that is the city. The city department's exporting the soil they need for some other projects. So far, over the past week and a half, they've exported, I think, about 3,000 ton as of yesterday. So they'll continue down that route until they get to their limit.
Are we at the spot where we can ask questions, or are you still?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
What is in the upper right-hand corner there? It looks like it's not part of the drawing. It looks like it's an existing structure.
Right here?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that is Dominion's gas hub, natural gas hub.
Okay.
And they already owned that corner before we purchased this property. So they'll continue to keep that hub there in that corner, and it's this here, this tannish part is dryscape, right along this whole edge running up to that gas hub. And all we'll have here is just a walkway to come over to the city sidewalk. Everything else will be far enough away from that hub.
Okay.
And it'll be fenced.
Is that the big pipeline?
Yeah, that they ran down 820 North, probably the same time the city did the storm drain line. Year and a half, 2 years ago.
The property was fenced already.
Correct.
So
Yep,
things
it
are
is.
moving along.
Yeah.
By the way, Mark, so in this section, dryscape,
Yes.
the community has reminded me that in front of Wasatch, they have a native plants garden. Can we, we're not going to arrogate that, it's just native plants.
Yep.
But can we be a little thoughtful and ask those people that created the native plants?
Sure. We can reach out, yep. I'm glad you said that, because I thought that was done. So I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're interested in that.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, we will reach out to them. Yes.
Kind of like Rebecca said, I'm assuming this is already being done, but earthquake stuff, proofing?
Yes.
Pillars, whatever?
Yeah, so there's no pier systems required for this. The soils are in good shape. There is a seismic zone east of us, but before the district ever purchased the property, we were required to do a fault study through our geotech engineer. And so we already went through those steps, confirmed where that's located, how far away from the site it is. But we aren't required to do anything unusual for it on this site.
We didn't have to do a trench test here?
We did soils testing.
Soils
Yeah,
testing.
so there were two parts. There was the normal soils test to find out content, and then there was a fault study test. So they did both those. Yeah. Any other questions on the Wasatch site? Okay. Go to the next one.
When are we
Bonnie.
going out to bid again on that one?
That will be bid in 2 stages. The site portion will be bid about mid-June, and the second portion will probably be late August, September-ish for the rest of the project. And part of that site portion that I call the site portion in June will include all the retaining walls and everything associated with that.
Along sidewalk along Oakmont, right?
Yes, yep, there'll be new city sidewalks along Oakmont and I think 2 locations where kids can jump off the city sidewalk from Oakmont onto our site.
But by the way, just so you know, like what I constantly hear correspondence about is people are sure that we're going to open this up and this will be traffic or something, and there's not even foot traffic going in here because this can't be a drop-off zone where people are dropping off kids and then backing up, or kids are walking in and then people are backing up. So that is a dead end always.
Will there be a fence
There'll be a fence, yes.
Yeah.
around the whole perimeter?
Not the entire perimeter, but we'll be
Here.
required to have railing along this upper portion, right along
Okay.
Oakmont, from here to about here. And then we'll have fencing at different, most likely we'll improve the fencing along this side until we get into the retaining walls.
But they'll probably be fencing here to limit. We don't want that to be a drop-off zone because that will just be a hazard.
Right.
Yep.
And
So a retaining wall and a fence will hopefully prevent that?
yeah.
Correct. Yep. And this is such a drop off here as well. It'll be really difficult for anybody to take a walk.
Do not underestimate kindergarten.
No, yep.
They can do a lot.
Yep. Yeah, we see the high schoolers as well. Yeah, they have some creative hobbies, including roof climbing. Okay, any other questions on Wasatch?
This isn't a question, just a quick reminder, and if this goes, I probably don't need to say this either, but when it becomes an appropriate time for both Wasatch and Shoreline, I would love to get a tour of the
yes.
school, kind of like we did with Timpview. It would
Yes.
be great to be able to see it
Yep.
while it's under construction and in progress.
We'll do that. We'll make sure we schedule a couple of those
Thank you.
as we get moving.
For some reason, the community also is beginning to believe that now that we've purchased this site, we're going to sell off the northern portion for high-density housing. No, really. People think that this is going to be condos,
No.
and we're not doing that, as you know.
No.
How do we quell this information? We need a training on that.
I know. So.
It was going to be a homeless city.
Yep.
All the emails are being forwarded to me.
Yeah.
Okay, go to the next one, Bonnie. Thank you. Just a last update for Shoreline. Our construction management group accepted bids for about 5 hours today from subcontractors and suppliers on that. I don't have a number for you yet. They needed several days to sift through that and review everything and make sure the scopes are accurate and that nobody included an alternate that wasn't previously approved in that whole process. So I should be able to update you probably by next Tuesday where we're at with at least bid day numbers and know where we have to start adjusting. The construction escalation here in Utah, as you know, continues to just climb at extreme rates. When you think of what we're doing at Timpview with soils and piers and everything involved in that Timpview project, the projects right now over the past 3 months that have been bidding around the state, in some cases they're $90 a square foot more than what we are doing at Timpview.
90?
90. And these examples, and I don't want to get into specifics, but it's from Weaver District to Tooele District to Granite District, that we're seeing this continued climb. So I'll keep you updated with Shoreline and as we move into bidding stages with Wasatch as well, to see where we're at.
So, Mark,
Yes.
can we, if, I want to have something clarified, but, so with the CM process, because we've seen all these cost escalations right now, or we're getting bids right now, that's based off of current prices. So in the future, let's say in a year, prices have settled, does that savings get passed on to us with a CM versus a hard bid?
The only chance we would have to recoup some costs if it took a slight adjustment is if it was finished categories, right? It's flooring, for example.
So this is all pre-ordering of materials at the current spot price.
Pre-ordering, no. Pre-ordering, we're stuck.
That's what I'm saying. So all these, what you're saying is that most of this is being pre-ordered right now for the future. And so if the price tanks in a year on, say, steel or concrete at the time that it's needed, it doesn't matter. We are still locked in at this higher price.
Not necessarily. We will not get a credit back if it goes the right direction, but if it goes up, we'll get letters from the manufacturers and suppliers that can't control those costs. Right now, I get letters multiple times a week on our projects. Last week on TimView, it was from the elevator company and electrical supply houses. And they are protecting themselves really well because they have no control over what's happening. And so unfortunately, yeah, we're stuck unless there's some type of market adjustment that eases the pressures off those suppliers and manufacturers.
And so if that market adjustment happens, we may see some of that back. Is that correct?
If we pre-order and we're locked in,
no,
it won't come back as a credit.
So like concrete in the future, or steel right now, correct, that makes sense. But say something else that's later on, that wood or whatever, we may get a credit back at that point. Still no. So then my next question would be, what's the...
The only way that would happen is if we took a gamble and waited, and we saw some projection that it was third quarter 2023 or something, and we decided to wait on some product, and we gambled right. So that would be the only way we would take advantage of that.
So my next question is going to be mainly out of just trying to tie some next pieces together for myself mentally. What's the benefit of a CM over just a hard bid? Because the way I understood it is CM offered some sort of protections for fluctuations in price, whereas a hard bid you're not. And now I'm hearing that it's not the case.
For years and years and years it was that way. Over the past 12 to 18 months, they've lost their ability to lock in with everything going on with the overall market conditions. And so they're at the mercy. And even our CM, I'll give you one example recently, and I'm trying to remember which company it was. The construction management group, the supplier, and us split the increase in thirds. But it's rare that I get that offer. So yeah, no one will guarantee a hard bid for hardly any time anymore, and the CMs can't control these market conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry,
Yeah.
for
Give
those
me
of
some
us
other things to think about.
who
Yeah.
don't know what CM versus hard bid is.
Construction manager versus hard bidding.
So if you pre-qualify construction management groups, they propose fees, right? So let's say for TimView, let's say it was 2 3/4%, the accepted fee. On a hard bid, you pre-qualify a group of qualified contractors, and you wait until the plans are completely finished, and then it's a hard bid day. Everybody bids those plans on bid day, and the low bid gets the project. One advantage of the CM process is that we're able to order early because we get them on board early during design. We're able to order steel, for example, instead of waiting 13 months. That's one of the advantages right now in this market.
So right now that's incredibly important.
Yeah.
Okay.
And part of the reason that CM has changed is that labor, it used to be that that all the fluctuation was in materials, was going like, but their labor was predictable. Now their labor and materials are unpredictable, and so they go, well, this is going to correct, but my labor is not. And so they've lost that. And by the way, if you just want to renovate your house, anybody that shows up will tell you, oh, I can't give you a price. You tell me what you want done, but I'm not going to tell you what it's going to cost until it's done. Are you ready to pay?
Correct.
Even just a house renovation.
Yeah. I've got a good friend that's in the residential investment world, and he was telling me last week you can go buy a beach house in North Carolina for less money than you can buy a Rambler with an unfinished basement in Utah right now. And it's a significant challenge that our CM groups, our suppliers, no one's ever experienced this combination of factors.
Beach house in North Carolina.
Yeah.
We know what name.
We'll get you the address. Any other questions on any other projects? Yes.
Yeah, so I have a question. I was at foundation meeting today and noticed a line item of a donation for PHS field. And I'm wondering, is that a contingency for in the future, or are we having issues with the fields at Provo High?
I don't know what that is.
Okay.
Through the foundation?
Yeah, it was a donation to the foundation. So sorry I didn't have time to email you.
No,
about
that's
it.
fine. I haven't seen that, Jennifer, so I don't know what that is.
So but the fields are good? at Provo
Yeah,
High?
fields are
Okay.
good. The drainage is still working like it should, and yeah, maybe that's something extra that's being donated for some other purpose. I'm not
Right,
sure what that
okay.
is.
Okay, just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure.
Caleb?
If I remember right, that's been there for a while. I don't think it was a new donation that we talked
Oh,
about
okay.
today. I think that's just an account that they had that's carried over for a few years, and so I think that might even predate this school. Might have been at the old
The old
location,
one.
they had that donation in there.
Okay, I missed that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next, we're just going to do a little bit of board training. On page 5 of the board handbook, there are the last 2 bullets, and I just want to go over those last 2 bullets today. The first bullet says, understand that authority rests with the board as a whole and not with individuals. Let me get to my... we've talked about this before, that we're each just one of 7. And it's important to remember that when we're talking to people, our constituents, anyone else, our emails, Facebook, that it's really important that you always say that this is your opinion and not speaking for the board, unless it's something that we've voted on. So that's really something really important, just so that it doesn't come across that this is the entire opinion of the board, because each of us gets to have our own vote. Any thoughts on that?
Really, that's the only way we speak as a board is through our vote, right?
Yeah.
So.
And then again, I mean, we covered it kind of last time, but the authority part, like, we don't direct staff and
Right.
things like that.
So, all right, the second bullet is participate in professional development and commit the time and effort necessary to be an informed and effective leader. So we have lots of different opportunities to learn and improve. We get to go to the USDA conference in January every year, which I'm really appreciative of that conference, because I feel like it's really detailed to like what's going on in Utah and what we can improve and take back to our district. And I'm grateful. I hope that we can keep attending that. And I was actually really grateful that we actually had it this year versus the years before. I'm glad we were able to attend NSBA at the beginning of the month. That was nice to see what's kind of going on at a national level, and then take those things and possibly bring them here. But I mean, something I got away from that was that we're doing really well as a board, as a school district. We have a lot of really good things going for us. We also have the MBA awards, and this is one of the best things I found to teach me how to stay on top of things, of how to be a board member. I asked McKay if he wouldn't mind talking about what happened in the legislature this year on the MBA awards.
In the last year, people have all had asked USDA representatives a lot, do board members know what they're doing? And we were able to not only say, oh, sure, we will be able to provide them data and say this is how many board members participate, this is how many hours they spend, because it's a login, this is the percentage that receive this award, this is what's involved in training, and so we got Representative Waldrop, who's the co-chair of Education Appropriations, and he has executive height. He's tall. He speaks with it. He's a lawyer, so he's moving up in Republican leadership quickly. And he sponsored a concurrent resolution, HCR 8, that recognized all the districts and individuals that received their MBA award. And so, in 2 separate hearings, both in the House and the Senate, he explained. The members of those committees were given access to, a login that they could see. That was extensive. That it was irregular. That it involved more than 15 minutes. That they require of a legislator to be trained in anything. They were quite impressed. But it was helpful in so many of the discussions over the past year, where they're saying, oh, we've got to take over school boards. We need more powerful levers to, these school boards don't know what's going on because we were asked to do so many hard things through the pandemic and all these things. So how those things are supposed to work, it became clear to them, and they recognized all this, and we hope that will be sort of an annual thing, that they will, by resolution of the governor and the Senate and House leadership, that they will recognize that school board members put in the time. At the same time, you'll also, there is, some of them, you might notice that some of them in the hearings notice that there is a shaming bit for those that don't show up on the list. We don't want to show up on the list if we're going to take it to, if USDA will continue to take it to the legislature that, oh.
You mean the districts who don't complete it?
Yeah. They're not on the list. So, because that's the first thing legislators do is they look, oh, is my district on the list? Well, yes, we were. That just means the majority of us complete that individual thing, that individual award. And so, we'll hear about this. Jennifer on the board of directors will surely remind you, the December deadlines of when this is recorded, and the awards are given obviously at the conference in January. But it's something that's easy, and we can complete things that our business administrator is audited on. Did you receive your open meeting law training? Certainly he can schedule somebody to come in and do that in one of these meetings, or he can just call USBA and say, can you send me their status, and they will send a certified letter that says these people have done their open meeting law training. And that will be done, and it's something that he gets audited on. Same with community councils and the other things that are involved in that. And so we can just free up some of our time in study session to talk about the things that we want to talk about and do the required things sort of at will anytime given. And that's actually helpful to us.
Thank you. Is there any other thoughts about doing the professional development?
Can you, from now on, write in board docs what we're going to be reviewing?
I can do that.
Thank you.
Maybe if we had some kind of shaming thing where we named the person on the board who didn't, because I know there was a person.
It was me, and it was literally just a matter of, I didn't go in and check the boxes, but I completed.
I wasn't bringing it up this
everything.
year, I'm saying for the future.
I completed it, I just never filled out.
May won't be here, doesn't she?
I would never miss doing the MBA. It's one of the things I love.
Thank you for bringing that up,
on
Dave.
that note.
Super nice of you.
I think your conscience, it was pricked by yourself. I was just bringing up a comment for future.
Okay. Got it.
So let's aim for 100% next year. So, sounds like a good
I
idea.
went through and checked all my boxes today.
Good for you.
Yeah, but you gotta watch some videos too, right?
Yeah.
Did you already watch all your videos?
I have 2 left.
Okay.
Which are the only 2 we
I'm
have to do,
impressed.
but I checked all the other ones.
Okay.
I really did. I did go in, and you guys will find out that that's because my board report is on this bullet point, and I didn't
We didn't even
realize
coordinate.
that
That's
we were
okay.
doing it, so.
it's not-
Okay.
You guys are gonna all hear the same thing again. You're
Okay,
welcome.
good.
All right, so we're gonna move on to the next item, about a calendar item, and I'm gonna turn the time over to Jason Cox, our Deputy Superintendent of HR.
Good afternoon, Squirrel Board. Thank you for the opportunity to talk for just a minute about this legislative session. Juneteenth was one of the topics that they discussed, and there are governmental agencies that are required to honor that as a state holiday, but the school board is not required to recognize it. We wanted to have the conversation with you today about whether you'd like us to recognize it moving forward as a calendar item. This year it falls on June 20th. It only affects 3 calendar groups in our organization because most people are off calendar as far as their contract is concerned. So it's 217, 227, and 242 day employees. Because
So how many employees is that?
I don't have the exact number. I could give you a guesstimate, about 120 employees.
So when you
it's-
say recognizing the holiday, you mean giving the day off, like some other holiday? to
Yes,
get off?
like a national holiday, yes.
And in cases, like in the summer, aren't we already doing like 410s? So doesn't it mean we just don't come on Monday, we just go Tuesday through Friday instead? Is that what would happen?
We could do that for this. Typically, we don't on a holiday week. We give everybody 8 hours, so they only have to complete 32
Got it.
in that week. So
help me then really quick, do we allot a certain amount of holiday days? If we add this, do we have to take away a different one, or are we just adding 8 more holiday hours?
yeah, so the hours aren't paid, they're just time off. So this year, the only concern is that where we are now in the school year, in the contract year, and how much time we have left, we can't adjust the calendar to have that be a non-work day for those 3 groups. So it would be an actual day off paid if we chose to do it this year. Moving forward, we can build the calendar to have it be a day where it's just a day off, like any other national holiday where it's not paid. But because of the timing this year, we don't have any room to move any of the days anywhere to pick up that extra day on the contracts.
Can you clarify the groups you told me? You gave us a number, I don't know what groups.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
I was just trying to keep that straight in my head. So that would be all administrators. It would be some of our counselors. It's not social workers, I apologize. It is some secretaries, some lunch supervisors. I'm trying to think of any other groups that would fall into that would be on that.
What about summer school?
Oh yes, maintenance and custodial and tech. Sorry, I thank you for helping me.
These groups of contracted employees, aren't they contracted so many days a year and they don't get overtime, right?
No.
So aren't they usually just covering extra hours all the time in any given year? I know that I show up when Alpine School District tells me to and I don't get extra pay. Don't all these people also do that?
Yeah, these are exempt employee categories, the ones who do have these longer contracts.
So if we honored the holiday,
We'd be giving them the
They're-
8 hours, but again, to your point, a lot
They-
of people work to get the job done because they're
They cover
contracted.
those things, that particular group covers those hours almost always as a course of their job.
You're saying they have already worked that 8. It's not like we're gonna just be giving away.
Yes.
Or if you take the time off, we're gonna make it up somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like, it's just,
We ask these groups of employees to do things, to show up for caucus meetings, to do these other things, to come to our meetings, to come to community meetings, information meetings in the evening. They make up these hours all the time. So I think this is a wash.
And aren't most of them, they're doing jobs that they have to do no matter what?
Yes.
And so.
They're given
like,
tasks.
oh, you
This
got
task
time,
has to get
then
done.
They'll just fix it somewhere else.
Yes.
So I assume we're having some summer school this year.
We are.
So that would, if we chose to honor the holiday, then we would not have school at all that day, right?
Right, on that day.
That would affect.
That
all
Monday.
that.
Yep, Monday the 20th. And the schools are scheduled for Monday through Thursday for summer school, so they would do a 3-day week that week, rather than a 4-day week.
How detrimental is that to summer school?
Typically, it's not to lose just the one day. They're there for 3 to 4 hours each of the sites. So to lose that one day really won't be too much of a detriment. I know it's a little bit difficult because it's a little different schedule for that week for parents, but the actual loss of the hours is
Could
not
we-
too much.
If we're already not celebrating on the 19th, do we encourage them to do it the Friday before, since it sounds like most people are gone the Friday in?
So the Friday is, sorry, the state has placed it as being the 20th, the Monday following the 19th. So that's where that came from.
So the state's honoring it that way.
Right. And like I said, we're not required to honor that or follow those rules, although I know the conversation with the state leaders when we talked about this was, you may want to consider it because all other state employees are required, or most other state employees are required. And
I have heard that BYU will be taking this off too, so.
Have you surveyed the employees that this will affect if they want it off?
no, I haven't. I could
I'm
say
gonna
just
bet
out
you're
of
gonna be excited about it.
yes, just out of a typical response, any day off would be a good day off. So, but we could definitely survey people who this would affect.
So I think maybe for this year it might be a bit of a stretch perhaps to get it done. I think for the future, whatever it is we decide to do, whether it's take a day off or something else, this is an important holiday. It's an important commemoration for people.
Yes.
And so whatever we choose to do, even if it makes more sense for us as a district logistically to not do it, I feel like there needs to be some kind of recognition and celebration from us. Otherwise, then it just doesn't matter. And I think that we have enough people that this matters to that we should be doing something to celebrate it. Not that that's your job.
No, but I think to your point, there are people who value that day for a reason, right? And have been celebrating to some extent, even if we don't get a holiday, because it means something to them. And I think that's a little bit of why the conversation's important, right?
So are you saying maybe not a day off this year, but instead we can make a board statement or something on Juneteenth?
I don't know how we cannot
Is that
do
what
it.
you mean?
Yeah.
We just went through like 2 years of
Yeah.
schools closed on a whim. I don't know how we not just go.
I
A
would
day.
be in favor
Yeah, me
of
too.
doing this.
Yeah.
And then, I know if we could do something like a statement or something as a,
That'd be great
as a
too.
district, like Dean was.
Wait, so you're saying, I'm not sure what you're saying.
I think that we can
We can't make the
recognize,
decision.
Okay.
treat it as a
So
holiday.
take
Yeah,
it-
we
take
have
it
to,
off?
we have
Yeah.
to treat it as a holiday.
Yeah.
And like I said, going forward, we can build it into the calendar so that it's not for those 3 groups an actual day off. It's like all other holidays where we ask them only to work 32 hours that week, but we build their calendar such where we still get their 240 days completed or their 217 days completed during the school year, or during the calendar year.
Yeah.
Is it gonna be a big, massive challenge for HR to figure it out and get it all done?
No.
If we decide to do it this year?
No, yeah, we just wanted your feedback, your input. It is a calendar change, we'll have to go in and edit that, but it's not difficult. It was just more getting your feedback.
Do we have to vote on that since it's a calendar change?
We didn't put it on as an item because it affects so few people, and it's not really affecting teachers or students. So
Except for the programs. I mean, it's just an announcement, but it's not in the statutory school calendar.
exactly.
It's just our work calendar, our HR calendars that are not approved. You know.
Right, yes, that's a
Yeah.
great point. We don't bring the contract calendars for
So-
approval individually.
Somebody brought up over here summer school, so that would be a day off for summer school as well.
It would be.
And that would mean no lunches on those days as well.
It would be, yeah.
But in the
No.
past, last summer, they would double up on the, you know what I mean?
Like
give the
on
kids a
Friday,
few
they would
extra-
take it
yeah,
home too.
few extra- I don't know if that's even possible, but maybe.
Yeah, we definitely could check into that as far as for the students.
Jason, just be aware that it will impact Big Spring to some extent. That will be the one that will be the piece that we'll have to navigate, because if there is no lunches that day, we either got to shift that week to a Saturday, or we're going to have to shorten the week. So just, we'll have to navigate it, whatever you decide. We just
Yeah. I think that's a great reason why we have the conversation, because I need to be made aware of all the things that it might impact, right?
Is that something that can be prepped ahead of time?
Possibly.
We can make sandwiches
Just gotta work
ourselves.
Could be a disaster. Could be a disaster.
What do you think, Chad, on that portion?
What was the question? I got a helicopter in my ear.
Yeah, so on the lunches, if we needed to do something for that Monday where the other workers are not there, it's a little difficult because we're saying we're going to hold camp on a holiday, but what's your feedback on that?
I mean, that was my concern. It's just, we've already told the public it's Monday to Friday. We can obviously change it, but.
I think that you can have camp on a holiday. I think we're celebrating, we're commemorating as best we can, even to Gina's point, you know, so we're doing as best we can. And so Big Spring, yep, this is a holiday, and I mean, if we need fundraising for one catered lunch, okay.
That's what we're asking, is lunch possible?
Let's do it.
For the kids that day? Even though the lunch staff won't be in? Like,
they'll
can
kinda-
something be
some of them
prepped
will
ahead
have
of
to
time?
be.
Yeah, we're
Because
gonna have to
if
ask
we're there
people
that
to
day,
not
they
be
Timpview, well, it's not Timpview because we're not at Timpview this year. I don't know where we are really preparing camp yet. But when we do, yeah, the workers will have to prepare the food for the kids that day. So they will be in.
So what happens for someone who has to be called in on a holiday?
Right now in policy, if you're called in on a holiday, you get paid time and a half.
How many people are we talking about for this?
The lunch workers, or?
Well, and all the camp staff.
And all the camp staff.
Yeah, that's true.
I make a motion, we take it out of Nate's paycheck.
I heard from Nate it's not very much, so.
Not enough. It wouldn't pay. It wouldn't
$50, whatever, divide by 50.
Well, and this will be a concern every year, because right now it's on a Monday, but
Yep.
it's gonna move, and we wouldn't say, oh, Big Spring's in the middle of the week, we're suddenly not gonna be able to help the kids,
This
so
will
we're
be
gonna
a
have to figure this out every year.
long-term systems problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Just have to cater it and have it outside.
That's what I was
catering
thinking.
event.
If we just, between you and me, we can probably find the money and just cater it in.
I think what they've done is set it so that every year it'll either be the 19th or the Monday following.
Oh, okay.
And so, but to your point, it is a year-over-year impact on that week of whatever activities we have scheduled. For the contract calendars, we can work around it because we know it's coming and we'll just build it differently. But for camp, it'll always be something that impacts camp.
That's a fairly small impact though, right?
Yeah.
They'll be happy to have it catered.
It'll be manageable.
You do
Catered
Taco
lunch.
Bell, they'd be happy.
And there will be a few employees involved
Taco
because
Bell.
of managing camp.
5 hours,
packing?
5-hour-old Taco Bell.
They love it.
Like I'm in college again.
Okay, is there any opposition then to moving forward with this?
I have this kind of related, I'd love to have, last year we had a report on summer schools and what was gonna happen. I would love to see what we're doing this coming summer. I don't know if that's something we can build into next month's agenda, but I've heard about summer school and I'd like to know. That doesn't have anything to do with Juneteenth, but.
Agreed.
No worries. We'll work with the people who are managing summer school. We could help with that.
Thanks.
All right,
All right, you bet. Thank you.
Next, we're going to have a review of select legislative items. So I'm going to turn the time over to Keith Rattel, our superintendent.
So I emailed you, and also it's in board docs. I emailed you both the bill book and also a chart listing the select bills that I thought were probably of greatest significance. If you've been accessing the bill book, the electronic bill book that is provided to us by the State Board of Education, you know most of what's going on here anyway, but if there are certain ones that you wanted to talk about, we've got a little bit of time to do that. So I just wanted to open it up to you and just ask. Go ahead.
You know, I'm interested in the full day kindergarten, so I'm sorry, I'm going to beat this one.
So full day kindergarten is about $12.2 million.
Statewide. So I'm so interested to know how that's going to impact our district. For us, what does that mean for us? How many classes are going to go full day? How many students? How are we going to distribute it? You guys know all the details already, right?
We do not. We don't know most of the details right now, simply because, have you even received the allocation on that yet?
Let me pull it up. That's what I'm just actually going to pull up. So the way it's not required, we can't require it.
Right.
And so it's going to be completely determined based off of how many kids actually enroll.
But you have to apply for the grant. If we applied for the grant, I mean.
So we have to actually apply for it? It's not automatic?
My staff is in the process of making that application.
Okay, great.
So they've not given any preliminary numbers because it's going to be a grant awarded one.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why there's not any preliminary estimates of how much we will receive.
And it's going to be based on need, correct? Am I remembering that right?
The emphasis that I received at the superintendent meeting was that frequently we have districts that are very clever in taking new money and finding ways to use that money to pay for things that are already existing. We were told in no uncertain terms this is intended to grow the program, not simply to replace funding for existing programs. Now there might be a few little details on that. For example, if district funds as opposed to other governmental funds are being used to fund full day kindergarten right now, it's possible we can do some supplanting on that. We've still got to figure that out. But for the most part, we should see participation in full day kindergarten grow, expand significantly. And this amount is $12.2 million. It says in the bill book ongoing, but what we were trained on was that this is happening for 3 years, that's the financial commitment to this point. Then anything after that will be rediscussed.
Because it's a transitionary cost. So when we do the grant, we would get some money in that WPU for those. They would say you're allowed to do that, and that WPU for that kindergarten student would go from 0.5 to 1. But that traditionally pays for people, and so this grant money is, it goes towards extra materials, the classroom preparations, if there's a capital cost, and that's why they talk about this 3 years in finding space, in hiring teachers, and doing all these other things. So I mean, it's 12.5, but like to fully fund what they thought was the program, it was actually around 30. So it wasn't. I mean, that's less than a WPU. So that's a transitionary cost. So would there be extra money coming to the district? Yes. So if we add full day kindergarten and we move that 0.5, we're going to get a couple extra $1 million to do this. So I think it's just if we needed the extra to find space or to create space or move portables, that would be the budget consideration.
So it can be used for capital?
Yeah. Yeah, it's flexible money.
So how are do we have a process yet, I should ask?
We do not have, we
Of
do
how
not
we're
define
determining which
process
schools?
yet. We're waiting for the amounts and we're waiting for the final rules. The
Has
state-
any principal expressed interest in switching to full day? You're shaking your head, Alex. Which school?
There are a number of schools, and right now Charity and I are in the process of collecting that information and data who has space available, who, what he's talking about, who's interested, space available, longevity of it, because again, like the superintendent's saying, it's got to last 3 years, and you got to be committed to that 3 years. So there's a number of factors that we're going to consider as well as we go through a process to say it can't supplant current monies that are being used in federal grant monies and those kind of things. It's got to be something in addition to.
We expect to have the guidance coming to us sometime the first week of May. So once we get that, then we'll be able to operationalize this.
And it starts this coming school year, right?
Yes.
That give you
Although
enough time?
it really is the district's discretion as to when we want to start. If we, for example, if you're working in a district where there's absolutely no space for this, and you're lined up with trying to get portables and you can't get them, perhaps you delay this a year until you can get those things. So it's just a matter of what the rules are as they come out for us, and then we have to interpret them and apply them to our unique situation here in Provo.
So those rules would include, like, if it's, I'm just saying, let's say at Spring Creek, they have it, but at Rock Canyon they don't, but a Rock Canyon student wants to do it, we wouldn't have, or would we be required to offer all-day kindergarten at Rock Canyon?
I think we would be required to offer a program for them to go to, but it doesn't necessarily have to be at that school, is my understanding. But again, we haven't seen the rules yet, so it's hard to say. Okay, was there any discussion about that?
So I mean, so Washington County they were engaged. They're doing it. Part of that was because they overbuilt their elementary schools. That meant that they were moving some kids. Oh, they had kindergarten at this elementary school, but first grade they knew in advance they were going to go to this other one. But they already started, and so they were sort of the primary advocate to, hey, this is important. Why don't we just do this? And a lot of the state's numbers as far as how many people would want to do this, came from their experience because, they jumped in last year without any extra funding, and they were just, advocating for, let's just do it. Alpine was actually looking towards doing that as well, but they don't have classrooms. I think being a little thoughtful, and if we had a parent group, I guess my main question would be, if we say we're doing it or not, can we do it on a limited basis, saying we have this many spots and then turn people away? If they disallow that, that's a different story. If they say, oh, you can have this, you can offer limited spots and you can participate. But the 3-year thing is, my understanding is that this is the law. You will fund it, and you can do this after 3 years. You better be ready to do this.
So my understanding, the way the bill is written is right now, we're not required to provide it for anybody who wants it because they did not give us enough funding in order to be able to do that for now. So I'm guessing as a district, we're going to prioritize the sites that are ready for it and that maybe have the most need that don't already have it, and start there, and then we'll slowly build up. And so there will be parents who may want it and not have that opportunity for the next couple of years. And at their local school.
We also don't know if our allocation can be carried forward from one year to another. I would expect it would be use it or lose it in a given year. But again, some of those details of the funding we just haven't seen yet.
And I'm guessing with the grant, so that decision on, they're parsing that legislative language to say either you're all the way in or you're not. If they come up with a middle ground, then there's an allocation, I guess. But if there's no middle ground, there's probably no allocation. And if you can't do it all the way, or you can't just offer it.
And right now, it's already an option. option, districts have the OEK funding line, the optional extended kindergarten.
Yeah.
And so this is expanding that program on top of that.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, others?
Okay, so in the bill book on page 18, it talks about the stabilization account where 91.5 million is allocated for all districts and charters for local one-time funding priorities. I'm gonna guess we don't know yet how much we're getting.
Page 18, for some reason I don't have page 18.
It's not the PowerPoint, it's the long 70-page document.
But he has it here.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's the, like the ones that they highlighted, some of them. Yeah.
91 million.
Do you want my computer?
I may have to get back, I didn't get any training on that in particular.
So we're basically.
So the stabilization account, the way that works is so if you remember last year, or 2 years ago was it, that they passed the rule where the rate is kind of locked for the basic rate, and it's going to fund this additional piece. Am I on the wrong one?
Yeah, that's the wrong one.
Okay, all right.
so that number that you see, that's distributed on, aside from the rural, which you know we don't get.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that other number is distributed just in WPUs. So you can take that number and times it by 2%, and you get a pretty good close to what our allocation is going to be from the stabilization account.
Okay.
It's just a simple distribution.
All right.
Based on our WPUs, and we have about 2% of the state's WPUs.
Okay. It does say on here that they're first taking out 20% for charter schools, but maybe after that, then 2% of that.
Yeah, it'll tell you, so there's this much money, how much is that, and then how much is for public schools is distributed on the WPU.
Okay.
And we'll get 2% of that number, so we could do the math.
Okay, others? We can get you more information on that one, Jennifer.
Yep.
Okay.
That's a knowable number.
This is not a question, but on House Bill 22, it's on page 25 of the same document, about the electronic meetings. It looks like we just need to update our policy 1420 that we just updated.
Yeah, the way this.
Didn't we do that?
The way this one goes is, let's say, I'll pick on Nate. Let's say Nate were to be on this meeting tonight by way of Zoom or telephone call, and we were to hold a vote, and there were to be a split vote on a given action item. If there is a split vote, then at that point, Melanie would need to do a name-by-name roll call on that vote. That's what this particular bill means. So if we're all in person and there's a split vote, no need. But if somebody's remote, then yes.
So it has to be the roll call like we do when we go into executive session,
Pretty
where
much.
you say Rebecca Nielsen, aye, Jennifer Partridge, nay, or whatever. So I think it's so that everybody can know exactly how each person is voting, right?
That's right. And this is under the transparency concept, the Open Meetings Act bill. So yeah, that's the purpose of this, is to draw attention to how individuals voted, I guess. Not saying this right, but that happens in politics.
Well, I'll be remote in June at the meeting, so this is good to know.
There you go.
Okay.
And I'm
Are you
not
gonna split
sure
the vote
if
on
our current policy meets the requirement for the first part about making sure we have a policy of how we establish a quorum when there are electronic meetings. So we just want to make sure our language covers that.
Okay, I'll look at that. We just did it, we'll do it again.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay, so to answer your question on the prior one, back up, sorry. I'm up to speed now. I know the stabilization account is kind of like our own fund balance that the state has. For stabilizing education in the future.
Yeah, they from Amendment G, where they took that first bit off the top and they put it in, and they're converting ongoing funds to one-time funds. So they go, we don't think you can use the ongoing money, so we'll put it over here, and then once it's over here, we'll let you use it one time ongoing. So they call it a working rainy day fund, because they go, oh, we didn't need it, so now we can use it as one-time funding.
Bingo.
Yeah.
So of the 50 million, we're going to get, so there's 50 million that was allocated for capital projects, we're getting 1.8 million of that. Okay, the 30 million that says for the School of Deaf and Blind, we'll see none of that because they're building new schools. Those are, it's actually for buildings.
Right.
That they're doing specifically for that.
That's
For the
for that.
91 million, I don't know that one off the top of my head because that's littered throughout everything in this one-time funding and priorities.
So no, the first number you gave comes out of the 90.
91.
Okay, so then that's.
And the 50 is
For rural.
for
Just-
rurals,
oh,
for
okay.
grants that they say we can't, we can't borrow that much money or we can't pass a bond, but we tried and this is what we'll do. And we've gone municipal building, the state help us out? And they'll do one-time loans or they'll do, even grants to do some of that. So we don't get any of the 50 either. So it's the
Okay,
other.
so am I understanding right? Of the 91.5, 50 is used for small schools, 30 is.
No.
It's additional.
No, it's additional.
90
Okay.
is additional.
Okay, got it.
They're not the same money. They don't add it. Each separate is a different bucket. So that 91 is the one that we get basically a little less than 2%.
So
Okay.
1.8 million.
Okay, thank you.
So that'll probably just get absorbed right into all of our projects, right?
Pretty much.
Something.
Any
Yeah.
others you
Yeah.
want to discuss?
I was just curious with the period products, like, does that need to be put in the school by a certain amount of time, or is it?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
No. So, do we
Yeah,
know
by the
when?
beginning of the new school year, there's supposed to be, in however many locations there are, community locations on the campus, are supposed to have that many period product dispensaries there.
And we said in response last week, and I know that one of you, the first wants to take a step, so we confirmed our account, and we're just waiting for them to let us know when dispensers and equipment will be delivered, so that we can move from there.
Okay.
So they will issue to us dispensers for each of the restrooms that have been identified, and also products that will fill the dispensers on the initial fill. And then from that point on, it's our responsibility as a district to maintain the supplies.
So is that a new line budget? I mean, I can't imagine that it's
We'll
that
have
much,
to
but-
build that into our custodial budget, yes.
Okay.
Do we have any idea or anticipate what kind of budget's gonna be needed for that? It's gonna be hard to say.
I haven't seen any of those numbers at all. Have you seen anything?
I haven't seen anything. That's where Mark and I are gonna have to have a large discussion about this. We talked pretty briefly in council yesterday, kind of around the budget was needed, what types that we need to stock it, things like that. And so Mark and I need to kind of get together to kind of figure that piece out.
I think you should include the school nurses in that conversation.
And that was
And
part-
the health board.
That was part of our
Because I
discussion
seriously doubt you've
yesterday.
ever had to use any of this.
Someone heard me bring that point up yesterday. That was my point exactly, which is I don't think I'm the most qualified person or
I'm
Mark to
guessing
be
there are
deciding.
people who have already gone down this path that we can see from them, on a
Yep.
larger level, how widely they're used and about how much they're spending on it.
But to Terry's point, if you do not include females in the decision-making, there will be problems. Just.
Absolutely understandable.
Okay, are there any other bills?
I just want to know, is there any of these bills that don't apply to our school district?
These do. There are others in the bill book that I did not include for that very reason.
Okay.
So if you see any gaps as you look through the bill book, their relevance to us is somewhat weak. I will tell you that there are a number of these that are being passed that we've been way in front of. For example, the water testing and,
Are you guys in front of the nursing one?
Pardon me?
The nursing
We're way ahead on the
requirements?
nursing
Yeah.
one.
How about on the school turnaround one, where you don't have to qualify anymore, but you can just apply based on prevention rather than remediation? Is that something that we've ever used in the past? Have we ever needed to use that?
We've had a few schools that have been part of the turnaround process in the past, but the main thing here is that they've got different categories that are coming in, and that's what's the big significance. One of the education innovation, there's 2 or 3 of those on this list. Those are kind of odd. The board may at some point receive people who want to come forward and talk about their particular proposals. Hopefully, I think we've got to put a process in place for how that would happen, because I play a role, of course, in developing the agenda, and if somebody just wants to come forward in public comment and say, well, I'd like to do this or this or this, that's not going to be a real efficient way to do it. So we've got to come up with some type of formal process when, let's say, a teacher at Provo High School decides they want to propose something really innovative, whether it's civics education or some other innovation they're looking at. All those are options on this list. So we do have some work ahead of us, but a lot of these things are already happening. Title IX reporting, for the most part, we're doing well. There's a little tweak to what Todd does every year in June on his Title IX reports. There's just a lot of these that we've handled already. And we had already planned, for example, House Bill 30, the student travel regalia. That's already been something that we've been doing. So we're not behind on this, but there are a few tweaks that we have to look at, and it's just, imagine being the State Office of Education where all these 80 bills you have to write rules for. We've got to come up with our own rules, but for the most part, we've got a lot of these in place, so it's just a matter of tweaking them to align with current law.
This one that's the regulatory sandbox that has something to do with the innovation says that you can apply for state board rule waiver.
Yep.
So are they talking hours and days?
We're not really sure, and the big challenge on that one is I would hate to see something start to happen there where people go around this board to try to make things happen. So there are a lot of questions on that one I don't have answers to yet. We as superintendents look forward to the training we get at the meetings down in St. George, but the next thing we look forward to is getting the rules in May, and then the next thing we look forward to is the contracted legal firm that writes the sample policies, so that we can make those changes based on what they recommend.
So the idea primarily behind the sandbox is they can go, this restricted fund money, can I use this for this other thing? And you can add that, can I use this over here? And they say, well, these are the results that we're looking for if you want to do that 2 years in a row. And that's the type of waiver they would look at.
So it's like a funding waiver.
Yeah, so these from restricted funds to non-restricted funds, to do a specific thing, and then they would want to track it. Where that gets into trouble is a lot of our charter schools want to use our special ed funds in very creative ways. and they go, well, you still have to, there are different auditors for that. There are federal auditors for that, not just the state. And the state has some role in this, but in the end, the federal government goes, you're not spending those dollars, our dollars, correctly. But if we, wanted to go through, if Derek is in course of asking him questions and he goes, well, there's not money for that because it comes from a restricted account, that's where we could maybe come up with an idea.
One more question for me. Are there any special ed bills that affect our district?
For us?
Derek and I have talked about this. I think there's one bill where they're looking at our average yearly membership. You know how general it is every year, especially it's been 2 years on a 5-year average. They're looking to move that now to the previous year on a 4-year average. And Derek, that will have some impact on us, correct?
Yeah, just because it'll be more current numbers, so whether that you're going to see the decline or increase will just be sooner out. So.
And the other thing they've done is they've also allowed us to increase the prevalence rate of how many students we can have overall up to 14% for the district our size, which we're about 11.5% prevalent overall right now. So that could have some impact as well as we continue to grow through child finding.
The other thing that's impacted is the growth factor is gonna step down, a 0.2 every year until it hits a 1-to-1, because right now it's currently at 1.5. So like, perfect example is we just moved into the district. My oldest child has special needs. So this year the district got the WPU times 1.5. So say it's $3,800. Take that, multiply it by 1.5, and really the district got around $5,000 for him. Next year he reverts to a 1-to-1, so he'll just get the WPU. So what's going to happen is in the future, that growth factor, it goes from 1.5 to 1.3 to 1.1 to 1. And so it'll just, that will have a small impact on the district, but not a huge impact, because, I mean, it's just only those growth numbers. So
Derek, didn't they do that to kind of help with the raise of the prevalence, right? They have to pay for that.
that was part of it. That was part of the overall belief and the reasoning behind it. So.
I have one more question. HB 374 is titled Sensitive Materials in Schools.
Yep.
What is defined as sensitive materials?
That's a good question.
It is kind of based on what the community says is sensitive, so.
Keith, can I jump in on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
And is that indirect, like, with all the ACLU stuff that happened with the book censoring in the others?
I think it's a response from that. So a big part of legislation is that the USBE and the State Attorney's General Office have to define for us better what is pornography or what is pornographic. Because that's obviously a big issue. It also it's got several components, and one of them is inviting community members to be on curriculum adoption cycles. We currently,
Which we do.
Yeah. So we're fulfilling many parts of that. It includes library books. It includes the adoption of them. So we're doing the majority of this. Once we get that definition from the State Attorney General via the USBE, we can add that language into the policy.
It's the criminal statute language. That's the clear language of the bill says that you will use the criminal code language. So even USBE isn't like coming up with new language. They're told what language to use. This is the definition that we use. The main impact of the bill came from Washington County, where their board went, oh, maybe that should be, but they didn't have legal standing to, once a book was in the library, to remove it. So they had a way to say, we're not going to put this in the library, but once it was there, it was hard, and they wanted to be able to, this is why Larry Bergeson, their superintendent, asked for this bill, basically. He said, I don't want this book in my library, but now it's here, and it's not, I can't move it out quick enough. And
so
that was part of it.
I'm sorry, yeah. One of the components of the bill is involving parents in that process, parents, community members, and a process for removing materials. We currently have a process for doing so. We just need to make sure that we'll add library books into that. So library and curriculum, we can either add library in or make basically a copy of that policy and procedure for library materials. We're all pretty curious to see how that's going to be described, because the state pornographic definition, I mean, it kind of accounts that a single occurrence of any of, a naked body part does not necessarily mean pornography. The presence of a description of sexual activity is not necessarily pornography. So, going back to the old, when was it, we heard many years ago, you don't know what it is until you see it, then you know it. That's going to be difficult, but we're awaiting guidance on it. Sorry, Keith, if you wanted to say anything else.
So, in whatever the statute, the bill, whatever, they're going to define the criminal code what pornography is. Is that what I heard?
Mm-hmm.
And there's
They're going to try.
They're going to try, but yeah. So there are people that would not want Cosmopolitan magazine in the library, right?
Or
but
the
that's not pornographic according to the criminal code. So, but then there are other that's why it's not called the pornographic materials. It's a sensitive materials. It's then the process around how local boards, local districts decide what is, and so there's more, it gives communities more power. There's a lot of fear in the community that this is what you have to do, and yeah, we'll have to make some decisions to go, yeah, this is where our community stands and this is okay. But for the most part, I mean, it's, USBA took a position of no, because we just don't like people telling us what to do overall. We'd say we're the local people who should come and work with us. And the people who were arguing for it said, yeah, but you don't know that you don't have enough tools to work with it. So like, that's why Washington County was actually in favor of doing something. So.
I'll just point out H Bill 184, teacher PD, that's a 2-year thing where the notice has to be 2 weeks. We've been giving notice based on the calendar that's adopted in June, so that's not a problem for parents. And also H Bill 302, educational language services. We spend a fair amount of money in this district on language translation, and one of the things we've been looking at is formalizing that even more. So as much as I would say we've cracked that code, I would say that we are very close to being in compliance with this new law. So as I said, we're already doing some of the things that are here. We've got a really good team in this district who are ready to take things on, and that's why I can report to you that a number of these are already in place.
I have a couple things real quick. Maybe not. So HB 30, which is Student Travel Regalia Use Amendments. I don't have a question about that here, but it basically is allowing Native Americans who are enrolled with their tribe. Do we have something more specific? Because I would love to be able to see other students from other cultures be able to wear theirs at a graduation. Do we have a specific policy, or we just kind of allow it?
We've got it in our graduation policy. Todd?
4410, and it does speak to that. I can't give you the details, but I can get that to you.
Okay, that'd be great.
But it's been a practice in our district for many years.
That's what I figured. I just wanted to
Like
double check. Yeah, I see them. I see all the Polynesians with their leis, and so I figured, but I just want to double check.
It is in policy 4410.
Okay, thank you. And then one thing that is not about something that was passed, and maybe we're going to talk about this at a future one, but I'm curious to talk about the attendance that sunset, or whatever you want to call it, that expired or whatever, and how that affects us. Is that a topic for discussion?
Me.
Okay, thank you.
Doug is getting ready on that one.
Okay.
Because there's
Thanks,
a number
Doug.
of rumors he's going to have to dispel.
So I do have that on there for you.
People are spreading rumors.
Imagine that.
All right, is there any other questions about any of the current legislation? All right, thank you. Next, the DEI statement. We've been discussing this for a long time. Doug, would you mind just discussing like the whole process, where this started and how long we've been working on this?
Sure, yeah, this has been something that's been a work in student services, and a lot of you have engaged in there. People have been part of our diversity committees. We have a lot of community members who engage with us in this. We just felt like, as we were trying to make some progress, we wanted to make sure that we weren't getting away from what the board and its constituents felt like we wanted to do with this. So one of the things that we began to propose to you as early as, I think, last summer, let's formulate some language. We had some staff here in the district office who took a stab at some frameworks for you, trying to find, as we explored other places that were working on this kind of language and so forth, to give you a starting point. And then you've watched over the last calendar years, we've refined that down and taken your feedback on a few occasions to bring that to a more succinct wordsmith document. And so at our last all-day, I'll call it an all-day board meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've been working on that.
Thank you.
Our all-day board meeting, where you worked really hard, we dug into that for a good half hour to 45 minutes, and the superintendent himself, I think, was taking notes from some of the discussion that was there. And so we have refined, as you took a set of eyes that I think were really meaningful as you look at it as community members. You know what your constituents feel. You know what it looks like as parents to read these words and make sure that it's accessible to everyone that we want to intend to have our audience on this. We don't want to write it just for educators. We want to write it for our community. So thank you so much for that. So from there, those refinements were put together, and our communication team put this on our website with an invitation, and I think, Caleb, we even pushed out an invitation for individuals to read and give comment to that. We had
minimal numbers of comments. I've read through those comments. I think others in the group have as well. It's been posted on our webpage with the idea of we would really like to make sure that the community knows where we stand in this area, and it will guide things like leadership development, it will guide policy and procedures and practices. If we're operating in the dark, we think that there could be some confusion. So we're at that point where gratefully today, if you feel like you through the study session today and then in the working session later in the business section, if you're ready to say this represents for now where we feel we want to go with diversity and equity and inclusion work that we're doing in the Provo City School District, we're hopeful that that again is a real foundational step for us for the work that we see ourselves currently doing and wanting to continue to do from the staff here at the student services as well as the whole district office. This is all of us needs to engage in this process. Student services just had the opportunity given to us to try and lead the process. Does that help, Melanie? Any questions for me about that process?
I'm opening it up to the rest of the board here. You were able to see the comments that were given by the community. Caleb sent that to each of us. Do you have any new suggestions, or do you feel like this is ready to be voted on this evening?
My question is, has it been translated into Spanish or another language that we feel like it needs to be translated?
We will at the moment that we think we've got a product that would put that time and effort into. And you're right. I mean, it seems a little ironic that we would talk about diversity and make it very difficult for everyone to see what we were trying to say about diversity, right? So I would promote that we not only look at just maybe an English to Spanish translation, but many of the other languages, particularly even those that we support and teach in our dual language immersion schools, right? We could really see ourselves looking at Chinese and French and Portuguese and so forth. So we would take those next steps. That's part of, I think, the real feeling in our community that this just isn't. And I think it's one comment you probably saw, right, in the feedback. Someone saying, if this is just a lot of words, but it's really not going to mean anything, don't waste our time, right? We don't want to waste people's time. We really want to sincerely move forward. So translation would be one of those steps.
And that leads well into my question. What is the plan once we have the statement in place? I don't want it just to get lost or hidden, but how can we get it out there so people know about it and then also use it, I don't know, as a banner or something. I mean, not a literal banner, but just to help us, guide us in our efforts moving forward.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. I think that each of our departments could have a role in that, including the Board of Education themselves. So I know Student Services ends, we're trying to start to develop some specific things that I've spoken to, and it's on your calendar for planning that we're for a professional development for all key leaders in this district. And we have 2 occasions. We have a board member who represents the Board of Education on the planning committee of that, as well as some key principals and some liaisons that are supporting us in the community. So in other words, immediately we want to see that we begin to talk about what it means to be in line with this vision statement, with what we have conversations as early as June about plans to, now let's get all of our key leaders, particularly those that work in the schools and those who work with kids in counseling offices and social work offices and other places, all understanding these guiding principles. So that implementation from Student Services is what I could speak of specifically, Jennifer. That's a great question. I'm sure Human Resources has an answer to that in terms of what they do in terms of recruiting and developing look-fors in teacher questioning and the type of staffing that is reflective of some of those same principles. I'm sure that the communications department, as I think Terry already mentioned, would start doing some things very specific around how we communicate thoughtfully, both with language as well as culture, to all of our constituents within the city, that when we say all students are going to have a place, let's really act that way in our communication. And I could go on, right? So I think all of us would have to play a role of that, including our own Board of Education. I mean, there's an event this Saturday that's an opportunity for one of our teams to get together. I think a lot of them have a spring social of sorts, right? And we have an opportunity this Saturday that one of them's planned a family night. For us to get behind that and say, this group is part of all of us, and let's make sure that we give adequate advertisement, promotion, and support to any of our groups who want to say they see themselves as part of the school district's family. So that's just some ideas that come to mind.
But I'm happy to hear there's already a plan to get it with our leaders in our schools, because sometimes things stay up at a certain level and don't get down into the boots on the ground, and so
Yeah, that's
to
a
work
great
with
point.
all of our leaders.
Doug uses that term regularly, so he's definitely thinking about that.
Okay.
Thanks, Keith, for examining my language. Any other questions? Again, I know it's more your discussion than mine, but I just want to be resourceful from student services.
Any other further discussion? You have one?
Decide if I should or not.
Yes.
There's been, I mean, some of the feedback from, just some of the feedback, there are some families and some parents who are very concerned that this will leave out their own children who may be in the majority. And I would just like, from my point of view, because I've been very vocal with wanting diversity, equity, inclusion, I want to be very clear that abso-freaking-lutely this takes into account white students, straight students, cisgender, LGBTQ, religions, abilities. If your child does not have any of the issues that require special whatever, yes, this covers your students. I would hate for parents to see this and think that we are trying to favor one group over another or trying to favor a group to success. And I've looked over this extensively. I have had conversations about this with people in the community as well as with student services and people on the board. And I'm not holding myself, I am not a DEI attorney or anything like that. But I have looked at it. I've looked at it from the perspective of someone who went through the school district at a time when there wasn't much DEI. And I think that this is a good starting point. And I want to make it very clear to those parents who may be, and perhaps rightfully so, afraid that this is going to exclude their students. This is absolutely not. That is not what this is meant to be. This is meant to include everybody, including those who do not have the special designations of anything. If your student or you feel as if there's something that needs to be addressed, hopefully this will cover it. And if not, then bring it to your school. Start at the school level, bring it to your school or your counselor or whatever, and then let's work on it. But I don't want this to become something that becomes for all the underrepresented people only. Like, this is their flag and this is their banner and this is their thing. This is all of us. This covers your straight, white, whatever your student is. This should cover it. And because I've been so vocal, I just wanted to. And maybe the business meeting is a better place to say that, but I want this to include, speaking as someone who is from a few underrepresented demographics, I absolutely care about those who are not underrepresented. I absolutely care about those who have different issues than my community has. And I want this to cover all students, and if you do not feel that it does, please send me an email. Nate B. I do. I want to hear about it because this should, if DEI is done correctly, this includes every single person in the schools and in our communities. And I don't want there to be any misunderstanding that we are trying to put some kind of political agenda on this. Absolutely not. This is about students from the ground up. Everybody that I have talked to, this is about students. This is not about anything political. This is about how do we make things better for students, and not only students, how do we make things better for their families? And if you do not feel your student is included, then have a conversation with me, please. Not that I can fix it. I'll refer you to Nate or to Doug. But I'd love to have some conversations because I want everybody to feel that this is their statement, not just the statement of the people who don't feel represented. So that's all I have to say.
Amen.
Anything else? Okay, so we will be voting on that in the business meeting tonight. All right, next, Shoreline Middle School mascot. So I'm going to turn the time over to Caleb Price, our Director of Communications.
I thought we were talking about the minutes.
That's next.
Oh, mine is out of order.
Hey. So at the all-day meeting, like I learned from Doug, in February, you guys decided there's going to be the Shoreline Panthers.
I still want Sasquatch.
With yellow and blue as the colors, so we were given the opportunity, Shauna more specifically, to develop some logos. To go with that, we did come up with 3 different logos. We presented those to the students over at Dixon and in a survey and let them vote. So in board docs you see the 3 logos that were presented and the results of that survey. I think it was like 356 total votes, about a little over 47% for the one favored logo, and so we just wanted to present those logos and the results to you today and kind of make decisions for going forward with that.
I have a question.
Hmm?
Was none of the above an option?
No.
Okay, because these are terrible. I really hate all of them.
Okay.
I just don't see myself
I'm
approving.
just curious to go along with that. Did you get any comments that you didn't like? Did anyone
No.
submit anything saying we didn't like any of these?
We didn't get any feedback with words either way. We did present it to people here at the district level, just to make sure there was we were on the right track, and the feedback there was positive before we presented it to the school, but from the school level we didn't hear. We just heard the numbers in the survey.
I just don't see myself approving any of these designs on the side of a building. Like, they're terrible.
What is this for? For the building? For t-shirts? For
So there were 2.
All the above.
It was all the above. There were 2 options. There was kind of the main with each of the 3 options. There was the main logo and then kind of a secondary logo that could be used however the school, architects, whatever wanted to.
I don't think they put this full thing on the actual building, but it might be on the inside in the common area.
Can you speak to that, Mark?
Yeah, this is the first I've seen it. I'm just watching on your laptops right now. So yeah, there's so
This
much
is
detail.
number 1.
This wouldn't be on the side of the building. There might be some portion, some abbreviated portion.
So kind of like Provo High, it's more like the head and
Yeah, something like that. Correct.
I think the one that was the winner on the vote would be the one that I prefer to. I think
Is that number
good.
1?
It's 1 on there. It's 2 when you click the
I think it was
different
this
individual.
Is this one that's up right
This
here?
one that she
Yeah,
has up.
that one.
Yeah.
Terry, I'm curious, is there something specific you're
I
not
just
happy
don't
with?
like all of them. They're terrible.
Just turn it sideways and then.
I actually,
Swimming.
I like the one they picked too. I think they're fine. Did Shauna design them?
Yeah, Shauna did all of them.
It's way better than I can do.
I was just
I
having a conversation in the car
like
with my
it.
kids the other day, and they're trying to understand a panther by the shore, and I like how this actually
Puts a panther
brings
by the
that
shore?
together.
Yeah.
I like that.
Gina?
So I would like to say right up front that I can barely draw stick figures. And so this, if I were to do this, this would be I'd be very proud of myself. I do wonder if this is going to go on, and again, I don't know anything about design or art or anything, but will this look dated? Like no, I got more sleep last night, but not as much as I would like to have. The type script, the font. I just wonder if it will look dated eventually. Like, do we want to go with something a little more classic that can stand the test of time if there's such a thing? I don't know.
Doesn't that feel to me that feels like that kind of sports, like block, like pretty basic block script. I don't know. It feels basic to me.
It's not. I guess my thing is it's not classic. Like, it's not something that. But like I said, I am not an expert in this area.
Okay.
I just have a question. So, our policy around, I know that the board approves colors and mascot, sort of the name of the mascot.
Yeah.
But this is just general guidelines, just like we just gave general guidelines about a holiday, and that the principal will have broad discretion from this point, or could take it over from this point. This is just general guidelines, right? And we're just feeling, Mark, do you need something for the building? Like in a timeline that our principals or community council or someone might vote on? Because my my recollection is the board is just the colors and what the mascot is. What they do with that mascot, I see lots of variations in Timpview
Well, that's where we
and
left it.
Provo
Yeah,
and
that's-
everything else.
That's where we left it when, I mean, the board decided on the colors and the name, and then the discussion was that we would go to Shauna and have her draw up 3 options, and we would take that to the students. So that's the process we followed.
I like
Yeah.
McKay's suggestion about taking it to the
Here's
school
a
committee
start.
council, the
This is what we've
school-
got so
the
far.
School PTA, either
Work
they
with
like
this.
it or they have some
If you
parents
guys are
who
ambitious,
are
do
designers who
something.
can help,
If
you
not-
know.
Well, I mean, I don't know, I don't wanna discount Shauna's work, I think this is totally fine.
Sure.
I'm not worried about this, I don't think it's ugly, I think it's great, but, I have someone who came to me and wanted to donate their design services. Anyways, and I don't know if that's something that can be done, but I mean, I feel like this is fine, I don't know.
I like leaving it at the school level. None of us
I
are
think,
designers, like.
maybe we were just making sure that, I mean, we
We're
have
on the
one,
same
we have
page.
one person that doesn't like any of them. But is
And
there
I have
any?
super strong indifference.
So, counter her passion.
Right, so yeah, and that's the thing, is it like, is there something about it that's like offensive or anything like that, that we just would not want this going forward?
I even think it's fine to say this is the board approved as long as we make it clear that the administration has broad discretion, and
Yeah.
they will likely not have to, they will for sure not have to come back for board approval to change their logo. This is sort of, it develops, I'm thinking this develops organically. I'm having trouble thinking when they pick that particular Bulldog or that particular Thunderbird. And,
yeah,
and
Sunset View
it just
and
sort of
those.
evolves organically, and as long as we're making it clear to that community and that administration and those parent organizations that they certainly, what goes on the t-shirts that they pay for, they get to decide, that will be fine.
Well, they or the principal, or, I mean, we can't
I
just
mean,
let everyone do whatever they
No,
want.
Timpview has a
willy-nilly, right?
million, they
They have
different
a million.
colors, they have different logos, their hats, like, parents make things, there's a million different things.
So what's on the
for
sign
Timpview.
outside the school?
Right
I
now?
don't know, it's
I'm not
like
sure.
torn down right now.
Yeah.
What was on the sign?
You should
Caution.
take
Caution.
that to the architects and have them design something that will look good on the school. So
Yeah.
there will be discretion, the architects and people with very sharp eyes, they can apply
And
to this.
that would be like a timeless Panther look or something.
Yeah, see, I like this for the everyday use, like for students, if they're gonna, like, if that's what they want, that's not a problem, but I think whatever we put on the side of a building has to be
More timeless.
yeah, more timeless, and again, I feel, Shauna, I love you. You are way more talented than me. I just think if we're gonna put something on the side of a building, then it maybe needs to have, like, I think
So
Timpview
maybe
at one
we
time had
need-
like a T
We,
and something
yeah,
like
we
that.
had that Indian-looking thing for a long time.
That got shot
the
down.
T-bird. I don't know.
But we probably need
I think there's a
input from the
couple inside the
architects to
building.
find out what
Yeah.
exactly they need.
Depends on the era.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we leave it to Mark and the team that's working on the school.
And if you have someone who's interested in doing it, send them.
He is very interested.
This was-
Really wants to donate his time to really come up with some really great.
But I feel fine in
Yeah.
saying, by the way, this was good enough if someone wants to go beyond it, above and beyond.
It's the
Yeah.
district's effort. We
And
did our part.
A couple points to add to it. Mark, correct me if I'm wrong in this. My understanding is more important than necessarily the logo, the colors. So if you notice on each of those, the specific colors that were used. So we decided to go with those colors. We have them to provide to the architect team. Then as far as official logos and everything, a few years ago, Stephanie went through the process of trademarking logos specifically for the high schools. But we did it for, I believe we can't remember if we copyrighted or trademarked all of the elementary ones. And so as far as the public's concerned, if somebody's trying to use a specific logo from, especially one of our high schools, we do have copyrighted logos that are the kind of official logo for those schools. I don't know, I know schools still have all their secondary logos and they use different things. I think Todd, you were still principal at Timpview when we went through that, and it was the orange T, I believe, was the copyrighted Timpview logo. And so there is, down that line, there is an official logo for each school, while they do still have the options of using some other things.
The whole purpose of that was that we would walk into, probably like most of you, walk into a store here in town.
Walgreens
and you
or
would see somebody,
Walmart.
Yep, and some enterprising person would have created a T-shirt with one of our school names on it and logos on it, and we just wanted to make sure that there was a little bit more control around that issue.
Well, if we're talking colors are fine to me. Is everyone okay with the colors?
Yeah, we already voted on that.
I mean, well, but
Well,
what you're saying is
specific
the
blue.
specific, they have like a number
yellow and
that will be
that-
referred to every single time.
Like that is.
It's, what is it called? It's like the.
I'm pretty sure Timothy was changed it a few times, and
Yeah.
it'll be okay.
Yeah.
So no matter what the
Otherwise, it's great anger.
actual logo is, those would be the colors that
These
were
are
in the
the
logo.
two colors that,
And I think the architects, I think, need that more than
Yeah,
necessarily the
'cause they've got to
Panther
match
itself right now.
certain other things,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so if that's good, we can get, Mark, we can get you those numbers for those specific colors, and then we can work with your person or however we decide to go forward at the district level to finalize a logo.
I can text him right now.
You could direct him to John, maybe, John Anderson.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would probably be the route to go, and let John work with him on that.
And we'll get the colors to whoever needs it so that they can just run.
Tell Shauna thank you for working
We
on
love
that.
you, Shauna. All right, thank you. Next, we're going to have just a small discussion about the current meeting minutes. It was brought to our attention that some would like to have the meeting minutes a little bit more in depth. Jennifer,
you can
yeah,
say.
Jennifer,
Yeah,
Steve. So we've attached on here the letter from our attorney Joan Andrews, I forget her last name. Joan Andrews. What is our requirements? What our legal requirements are? And as of right now, we are completely in compliance. So this is a discussion for the rest of the board. Jennifer, if you want to explain what
Sure.
you would like to see, and then we can discuss it.
Okay, yeah, so, yes, I just feel maybe when we talked about it last time, as now we've had the chance to have some minutes come through with what we had discussed, I feel like maybe we went too far to the other end of the spectrum. I'm glad we're meeting compliance, but I think there's more to minutes than just what's required, and I feel that minutes should have we don't need word for word or anything like that, but at least some summary of not only what was presented, but what was discussed. We are stewards of the public, and I feel that it's good to have in the notes that we are asking questions, and again, not necessarily that the exact question has to be in there, but what was the sentiments, the ideas or things that came through in the discussion based on that issue, not just the issue that was presented. So that people can see that we are being thoughtful and we are asking questions and not just taking the item and taking your word for it, you know, the council's word for it. And then also a good summary if we were to go back and say, what did we say about that, or did we, you know, ask that question about it, we would have a better understanding of it. I attend several boards and things like that, and I feel like when I get the minutes from those meetings, I can have a good overview if I wasn't there of exactly the nuances of some of the things they discuss. And as I've read the last few months, I feel like we're missing some of that in our minutes, and I would like to just have, I don't want to kill Bonnie off and have her type everything, but just a little
So,
more detail.
This is my 2 cents. We have the YouTubes, and they're not being taken off. So if I really wanted to see word for word,
Right,
and
and
you're
I
not
don't
asking for word for word, but I guess that's where I feel like I'm okay with how the minutes are myself right now. And if I need more in depth, I can go to the YouTube and watch the YouTube channel and see what went on. And that's my opinion, so.
And the audio.
And the audio.
It's hard if you have the YouTube, because it's so in depth, but it takes a long time. But when you do that in between thing, it takes some interpretation skills, and we're saying, Bonnie, interpret what my terrible joke was, or Carrie's super offensive thing about, or whatever. And it's, I don't know, that seems like it's a tough ask to do it well. I'm not saying she can't do it, but it would take some artistry.
So we actually had a very long discussion about this exact topic out at Uinta. And our attorney out there, which is different than Joan, which is interesting to see that they both kind of lined up on this, was Paul Van Coleman at the time. And he recommended that we literally just did a timestamp, what the topic was, a brief summary of what the issue kind of thing is, how everyone voted, and then kind of referred. Because what happened was, is before that, the lady that we had doing the dictating and copying it down would do just exactly that, and then they'd write the comment down how it was heard, and then somebody would say, well, that's not what I said. Well, that is what you said. Well, that's not what I meant. And it really kind of turns into
And
this.
it turns out that when you approve the minutes, then that interpretation from the secretary becomes the policy.
Well, that's why we have the opportunity to approve it and.
Right.
Then we'd have to
So,
read it.
so.
But what you're getting at, McKay, which I agree, is you can't put nuances and tone and all that kind of stuff into text. It's the same problem we have with text messaging. Someone sends something that you think is super offensive, and they were like actually trying to be funny, and it's not, like it's you can't catch it.
Yeah, and so yes, I mean we do have a responsibility to review the minutes and approve them or correct them. But that bar goes up a lot higher, and especially in smaller districts where the football coach and people are discussed in open, things that might be, we're conscious of closed session a little bit more than they are because of what the community comes and they. So we do have safeguards around that, but it becomes routine, and even when we say we're going to approve the minutes. That it doesn't take very long before we go, well, I read through the financial reports and I think the minutes are okay. And the thing that doesn't get caught is the thing that gets you because somebody's doing their best and they go, well, you want a little more detail, and then this is the thing that says, and I don't think with all the avenues, with all the channels, it almost has to be either word for word or a recording. Because if it gets into an interpretation, you say, well, you've agreed to this interpretation. You took a second vote on this. And even with the recording, you go, well, no, listen to the recording. It wasn't like that. They go, no, but this is the one you voted on twice. You had the discussion and you voted on this twice, so this carries weight. And there's a reason why the attorneys go, if we keep it at this level and we keep it with what you say, with the audio recording, and it should be good enough that people can find things that they're interested in. When was this bond discussed in a meeting? When did this show up? Okay, I'm going to this meeting, I'm listening to this. And also our discipline to stick to our agenda. And so some of our public comment and how we respond to that was not on the agenda, so we're going to stick to it because those minutes need to show up. There is just some wisdom in why the attorneys tell us to do that.
All right, I'm outvoted.
No,
I'm fine with that. That's fine.
When I was reading other board minutes, the only difference, but the good minutes that I read was it would say board member McCabe asked a question, and then it said whoever the next person was speaking, this person answered the question. It didn't say what question I asked because you can watch it on YouTube or you can listen to the audio stamp, but it just said so that whoever's reading the minutes and watching or listening can say, oh, okay, that's Terry, or that's Gina, that's Jennifer, who actually asked that question. That's the only thing I would say we should add to our minutes is this person made a comment. It's pretty generic.
That is, except for in this discussion that we've already had right here, it would say Jennifer made a comment, McKay made a comment, Rebecca did, then Terry did, then Rebecca did again, then Terry did again, then it was Jean's turn. Like it would, it almost feels.
And it would all,
Yeah.
reading the minutes, it would provide almost no value, because you're just saying that reading, a comment was made, a comment was made, a comment was made.
We had a discussion.
You have no idea
But I
what it was.
do like the idea of the timestamp, though. On the beginning of each topic, a timestamp would be super helpful.
Yeah,
Because
if there's a timestamp, it doesn't quite match up with YouTube, but it'd be close.
Yeah.
So,
It matches with the audio.
but it would match with the audio. So,
So I think what McKay, you're saying is, we have to look at this from a liability standpoint. And that's unfortunately how we have
That's all
to
the
view,
lawyers are doing,
we
you
have
know.
to view things through that lens most of the time.
Yeah.
That's part of our job, but and from a liability standpoint, we can't afford to ask Bonnie to interpret things that, you know, we've said that she may not understand the way we try to put it or whatever, you know. So I tend to agree. I agree with you, but from a liability standpoint, that's the way it ends up having to be, I think.
And I think that there's different purposes for different. I think that, you know, when the PTA takes minutes, they're trying to do something, or another group takes minutes. Our minutes have a specific purpose, and it's almost all related to litigation. It's actually related to our liability. Where can I find that this was talked about? And so we have to view it in that way too. That's the purpose of the minutes and why, and the statutes around it, is to give people grounds, give people evidence, and whatever we can do to give them the correct evidence, which is an audio recording and a video recording, I think is the best thing to do.
Yeah, and that's part of our audit requirement. Our auditors every year read through our entire minutes to see if things are what's been approved by the board, what actions the board is taking, what agreements have been signed off on, and things like that. They go through and review all that, and so to McKay's point, in terms of liability, if say something is discussed and then put down differently in the minutes and that's approved by the board, it's exactly it. That would be a loophole that they could say, no, you approved the minutes that said something different than what you discussed. So you really are saying that this is the way it's supposed to be, or whatever loophole is there. So.
okay, so it sounds like to me we're just going to keep them as is.
All right.
Okay. Consent calendar, is there any questions on consent calendar?
I do, but I have a lot of questions this time. Do you want to move it to?
Oh,
The answer is, does Derek have one already?
No. No.
That was a lot of questions. But since we're supposed to start the business meeting.
Is there any way you can email them to him right now so he can start getting prepared?
No. Okay, can you do that in the future too? Just remind, it's helpful so that, again, you can still ask the same questions and it's helpful for everyone, but it's also helpful for him to get the answers for you.
And public.
And for the public. It's more transparent that way. So if you can just do that in advance again.
So do you want me to ask my questions right now?
No, we'll move it to the business meeting and you can ask them there. So, but just for future, if you would do that. For the upcoming Google Calendar items, Battle of the Books, that's something that's happening. We're all invited if you'd like to come and watch. Golden Apple Dinner is April 21st, this Thursday. Do we need to be there?
It's one of they're doing a drive-through kind of thing again, so I don't.
And are we supposed to be there?
You are
You're
welcome to be
invited.
there, shake hands, thank people.
Okay. And then we have our joint board council meeting this coming Tuesday, April 26th, Tuesday at noon. If you have things that you would like to be put on the agenda, please email myself or Rebecca, and we can discuss it and make sure it's appropriate. Then we have the retiree dinner. You guys each got an invitation for that tonight.
It's at 4:30, right?
That's it.
It's at 4. Okay.
We started at 4 with the first group, 4 to 7. We have a lot more retirees this year, so we'll be there for 3.
Okay. My little paper said 4:15.
In the PDC?
And mine says
In the
4:15.
PDC.
Good.
Okay.
They're coming at staggered time.
Yes, they come with their school group, so their administration will come with them and
Great.
be able to take pictures.
Okay, and then we'll have a study session on May 10th, and then our evening of excellence on May 11th to recognize outstanding teachers. And that will be a dinner that evening, and your spouse is usually invited if they would like to come, usually.
And just to make sure everybody knows now, the study session that you mentioned, we'll hold the study session here. We'll need to adjourn this at about 20 to 7, and then we will be up at Centennial for the board, for the business meeting. And that night we'll be recognizing our staff recognitions that we normally do in May. So lots of teachers, lots of classified staff.
Will someone please email me all these things?
Yes, we will keep you up to date on that.
A lot of them are already
Bonnie
on
also
the
has
right?
it on our Google calendar.
It's on our Google calendars as well. Tiffany graduation is Saturday, May 21st at 10 a.m. Jennifer, you're speaking.
Yep.
And we have a study session that same week, morning, May 24th, and then Provo High graduation.
Is there a time yet on that?
On the Provo
Provo
High,
High graduation?
I don't have a definitive time yet.
Okay, and that's, Rebecca, you're speaking for that, and then Independence is May 26th, and who's speaking for that one?
Yeah.
All right, Nate.
But you have to dab.
Yeah.
In your speech.
Do we have a time for that? How does that fit for
Pardon me?
Independence, we know Independence.
It's typically been that time, but I'll verify and get that to the board.
Okay. All right, is there any other, let's see, there is nothing else, so is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, we'll meet in.
Rush together.
My friend gave me
Jamie.
a
So it's
sorry.
excessively
You were just
compulsive.
being